we're going to take a look at Nottingham Forest. We have a very special guest joining us on the podcast today. Matt Davis is joining us here on the Total Saints podcast, and we're going to have a look ahead to our opponents on Sunday. Matt, thank you very much for joining us. How are you?
Well, I'm very well. The season's I don't want to rub it in your faces. The season's going very well, thank you. So I'm doing all right.
Talk about the season. I watched loads of your content on the Forest Focus. Absolutely love your work. Congratulations on what you're doing. The season's been unbelievable, hasn't it? You must be in dreamland.
Oh yeah, I mean, we did go into the season thinking that we would be, okay. We finished the previous season slightly better than the results in terms of performances, but I think we had a couple of good results to start with. Obviously, we won a close game at St Mary's, and then it kind of cascaded after Liverpool winning there. We got a draw at Brighton and a draw at Chelsea, and everything kind of snowballed with positive momentum, which I guess is the inverse of Southampton with kind of the negative momentum. We've just been on the right side of it this season, and now we're all dreaming of what can be in terms of European football, even the Champions League. And yeah, if we win against Liverpool as we record this tomorrow, then I suppose we might even start dreaming of the title. But it's all pretty mental, to be honest. So yeah, it's pretty crazy to even talk about it.
It's 2 back-to-back home games this week as well. You have Liverpool, like you say, before you play us at the weekend. You could potentially do a league double over them. Could be the first time since 1962-63, which would be incredible, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we won there. We've won at Old Trafford as well in the same season, which I think is the first time for 100 years or something mad. We've won 7 in a row in all competitions, not conceded in 5. It's all crazy. But we do have a good team, and we do have a manager who's set us up really well, really effectively. And we know, we'll get onto this, but we know exactly what we are, and it's given us a foundation to compete in the league in a slightly different way. A lot of the teams at the top play a similar style, and we're doing it slightly differently. And we've got the quality of players this season to try and do it with such a strong defence that it's coming off so far. And I think it will continue, maybe not to this degree, but I think there's a belief that we can maintain something similar to this form for the rest of the season, hopefully.
Matt, how much sort of credit and respect do you think Nuno has regained, I suppose, from obviously Forest fans, but the Premier League in general? Because the Spurs was clearly difficult, but actually when you look at the jobs he's done elsewhere, I mean, he's never really done badly, and maybe a little bit overlooked by a lot of the league.
Yeah, I think we as Forest fans, and probably football fans in general, certainly Forest fans when he arrived, we had misconceptions, or we focused on the wrong things. We focused on the duff spell at Spurs, where I think pretty much any manager would have struggled there. He was like the 10th choice for the job or something. Then he went to Saudi Arabia, which kind of suggests that he'd given up on the Premier League, but I don't think he had. The real Nuno seems much more to be the Wolves Nuno, and it probably has to be the right kind of club where you can play his style of football, and that makes it sound like it's bad football. It's not. It's really entertaining, but I think fans need to be patient with it, and Forest fans are, because obviously we've been in the doldrums for so long that we're just loving this. But I think he's a great manager. The more you hear about him in terms of his man management, his works with charity, and his work in the community, and it's obviously much easier to be focused on the community and do all that nice stuff when you're winning games. But we've seen that so much this season. I think he's one of the more underrated managers in the league, definitely, Alfie. Yeah.
I think Forest, one of those teams, I'm a little bit embarrassed about it, because I think at the start of the season I probably would have tipped you to be, bottom 5 at least, or at most. And I think I even asked the guest we had on at the time, is just avoiding relegation sort of the aim? But I mean, you actually look at the team, they make football look simple in the sense that you've got a big number 9 who knows where the goal is. You've got a couple of really quick wingers, a player like Morgan Gibbs-White right behind them, and a defence, who's organised by Nuno, who's clearly well drilled, knows what they're doing. Amo-Ameyaw starring, and you actually just sort of think, it's one of those where how did anybody even think they'd be down there? But I suppose you don't know until they go on and surprise you.
Yeah, I think so. There's a lot of individual players there who you think could play in top half teams comfortably, like Ilanga and Hudson-Odoi, but they were kind of reclamation projects where they could have gone the other way, and they haven't. I think it's all, when you say it it's all kind of simplified, and you think back to Brian Clough with, get the ball to John Robertson and he'll cross it in. And you don't really have teams like that anymore. It feels like are massively overcomplicating things. You probably discussed this with Sam and Russ Martin massively, but there's some value in just having a big lump of a centre half alongside a ball playing centre half. A number 10 will create, and two wingers will cross it for a striker who can score. And it sounds simplistic, but teams haven't worked out how to stop it, especially on the counter attack with the damage that Morgan Gibbs-White's been doing recently. And Elanga, between them, I think they've got Gibbs-White's got 6 goals or assists in 6 games, and Elanga's got 5, and Chris Wood's on fire, and it's all come together at the right time, certainly. Yeah.
Gosh, we can only dream of those numbers at the moment, and that's throughout the entire team.
It's just the way. What I'm impressed with is the way he has built a team to play to an obvious style of play, and the players that he built. He's brought in round pegs for round holes, and that sounds so obvious, but so many managers don't do it. They sign the players they can sign rather than players they actually need. The last time I was as impressed with sort of like recruitment that was done by any team was years ago when Klopp was building Liverpool's team. When he bought the fullbacks that he needed to play the style that he want, and then he bought the centre half and the goalkeeper, and it all kind of fell into place. So the players that Forest have recruited relatively recently, like Elanga and Hudson-Odoi, and the centre half Milenkovic looks a great player as well. So to get those players in and to get them to play to the pattern that he wants them to play to is tremendous management and tremendous recruitment that we can only dream of. And to get like an Indian summer out of Chris Wood is because he was a player that was linked with us, I think 2 years ago.
Yeah, in the January window, I'm sure.
The last time we were having a disaster, and to be honest, most fans were probably sort of like turning their nose up at that thought. And instead, we signed a 6'8" guy from Nigeria who's been pretty useless since we signed him. So that's kind of the way it's been going for us. But it's nice to see a team that's not traditionally, if you like, one of the big boys doing well.
Yeah, we did have a period of very rough recruitment as well, born out of the chaos of promotion, getting up through the playoffs, and we signed a ton of players. And the
nobody's talking about like 47 players in a season anymore, are they? Everything is all about how smartly Forest have recruited. And it's like, well, that was only 2 years ago that you were obviously spending all that money, breaking PSR, getting a points deduction. But ultimately, it served you well because, frankly, the team that you came up with had no rights to get promoted, really. In terms of the individual quality, they were obviously a team that had built from, obviously Cooper had got them from bottom of the table to promotion at Wembley. But if you laid that 11 team first team out to most Championship fans, they said, well, that side should finish about 12th. So to have got them promoted and then obviously completely thrown it all away through necessity. Got all those players in and somehow got enough of them to kind of do the minimum that you needed to stay up that first season. Because it is ultimately, once you stay up 1 year, you're suddenly at a huge advantage. You get through the first year and it's everything gets a whole lot easier because you've then got the budgetary advantage. You've got the
3 promoted teams that just as you were.
Yeah, exactly. Three teams that are just coming up that are in the situation you were in the year previous.
So you're saying that we'll be all right next year?
What when we somehow finish 17th? Bearing in mind that tomorrow is apparently the day when the Premier League are gonna sort of be doling out any PSR penalties for this season. Are we kind of banking on? Are there 3 that are going to be below us? City, I think, is probably a given. But beyond that, Leicester maybe. But yeah, we've still got to find some actual points from somewhere.
We are clutching at straws.
Yeah.
Matt, there's one player who hasn't been mentioned at all. Obviously, he's on loan, 30-year-old midfielder, not getting much game time. But James Ward-Prowse, who, what's going on with him at the Forest?
He's been a little unlucky, I think. He came in, and I think his first game was at Anfield, and he played really well. He was a bit in and out of form after that for a couple of games because I don't think he played at West Ham. And then he got sent off at Chelsea, when he was actually playing really well in the game. And I don't know if you recall, he fell on the ball and handled it.
It was a good second booking that.
Yeah,
because they were clean through.
And unfortunately for him, since then, he's not been able to really get back in the team because Ryan Yates, Nico Dominguez, and Elliot Anderson in particular have played so well. Ward-Prowse did play against Luton in the Cup, and he did well, but he just finds himself down the pecking order. But I don't think it's anything he's done particularly wrong. I don't think he's played overly well, but he's not. No player this season's been absolutely howling. He's been fine, but he's just a little unfortunate, I think, to be honest.
Is there a danger that West Ham recall him because he's not getting enough games?
I guess it's down to the Potter, isn't it? Is he a Potter player? You guys have seen more of him than I have, to be honest. Has he?
I reckon Potter would fancy him.
I could see it. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. But I guess it depends on what deal's been done because I mean they're punchy wages, aren't they? About 150 grand a week, I think.
Yeah, I think he's our top earner even now. So it depends if all parties agree. We are trying to. I think we've got the 12th or 14th highest budget in the league. I think we're linked with a couple of midfielders, Douglas Luiz and a few others. I've seen names bandied about. So maybe he goes back. He's probably our 5th choice central midfielder right now, I would say.
Yeah.
Matt, your home form's been very good, isn't it?
By mile. Yeah. Sorry, go on, man.
Say again.
Matt, your home form has been unbelievable this season. I was looking at recent games. You won 6 of the last 7 home games.
Yeah, we did start a little slowly. We played Bournemouth at home and were a little unfortunate. They played really well, and then Wolves drew a game we should have scored a screamer, and then we lost the France. We did start slowly. We got progressively better. We had a really good win against Aston Villa in stoppage time, and it's just part of all this momentum thing, I think, Martin, that we were losing that game with 5 minutes to go and won it. And as soon as we scored the equaliser through Milenkovic, they grabbed the ball and they were back to the centre spot and ready to go again. And there's a lack of fear of anyone, really. We'll see how it goes against Liverpool. Obviously, I don't think we will get hammered, but it's always possible with someone, a team of their quality. But yeah, there's certainly belief that we can.
They've not been quite as sort of dominant in the last month, 6 weeks or so, have they? So I think I don't think they're anywhere near as kind of to be feared as they were, say, 2-3 months ago.
Yeah, I think their fullbacks are on the slide, aren't they? Well, Trent's on. It looks like he's on his way, and Robertson's on the slide. So our wingers will pose a threat to them tomorrow, hopefully.
Matt, where do you see you finishing up this season? Do you think you can keep this momentum going and finish in the top 4?
I do, and I think there's justification. I know people will maybe scoff at that, but if you look at our defensive statistics, we've conceded, I think it's as many goals as Liverpool, and we're built on such strong foundations. I don't know if you guys play stock in XG or not, but it's very strong. We look very hard to break down. We've only had a couple of games against real top teams where they've kind of picked us off, City and Arsenal, both away. But other than that, we look strong. And we always look like we'll score at least 1 goal. So I feel like we can get something from any game. So I think there's reasons to believe that we can do it. That's not saying we definitely will. The other thing is when you look at the teams that are up there, like Arsenal, it looks a bit rotten at the moment, a little bit, without Saka. Chelsea aren't playing quite as well recently. I think Newcastle are really strong and probably the team to fear. And City depends kind of what they do in January. If I watched the highlights against West Ham still could have scored a lot of goals in that game. So, I mean, I can make you can always spin a narrative, can't you? So I'm spinning a narrative here that we can do it. It's obviously going to be very difficult, but I do believe it's possible. Yeah,
that'd be brilliant to see. It would be really good to see. Before we go, Matt, we've loved having you on the podcast. We're going to get a score prediction from everyone. I'm going to, as the guest, I'd like to ask you first. What's your score prediction for this one against Southampton? Obviously, you got Liverpool before that.
I think it depends more on you guys being Man United in a way. Having seen your performance against Brentford, which was
dreadful.
I mean, we were in our WhatsApp group saying.
I hope performance is in inverted commas.
We were in our WhatsApp group saying Southampton are going to break Derby's record after that because they look like they're gone. So if you guys go to United or what is it away? You guys do put in a performance there, then my prediction would be revised. I mean, I've got to come on and say I think we'll win because I do, because we've done well against you, and I think you've got good players. Like I think Fernandez looks good. I think Dibling's brilliant. I think there's lots of talent in your team. Kyle Walker-Peters is out of contracts, and we were saying on our podcast the other day he's a good signing for someone, maybe us. And so it's just the collective thing doesn't look right. Whether the new manager can get a tune out of you, I don't know. But it feels like we're playing you so early in his tenure that I do think we'll win without thrashing you. 2-0, something like that. We don't concede many goals. So, yeah, I think Forest will have a comfortable win. Sorry.
No, you're backing your team like we would like to do. Alfie, what's your thoughts on this one?
I think for all the same reasons that Matt's outlined, I'm also going to go for a 2-0 Forest win, and it could be their, 7th win in a row with a clean sheet, depending on what happens Thursday. So,
yeah, could be their 8th league win in a row. I don't know who it will be, but it could be.
Yeah.
Glenn, what's your thoughts?
I think it's in our interest to make it a real sort of turgid game as best we can, and don't leave any space in behind by overcommitting players forward. So I just have a feeling that Uric will set us up that way to play deep. So I think it could be a frustrating game for Forest if we get to half time, still level. Then maybe some nerves and a bit of we've played a couple of teams this season where there's obviously they all expect to beat us, and against Brighton and for example they started sort of like getting a bit niggly as it got into the second half and they weren't all having it their own way. Fulham was another one that was like that as well. So I'm hoping that we can make a game of it, but ultimately I think we'll come up short, and I'll go for 1-0 to Forest. What
about you, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way we'll set up will be very defensive, which, I mean, Forest love nothing better than sort of non-elite teams coming at them, and then they can just pick them off on the break because they've got better players in those areas. So I think we will basically do everything in our power to not do that. I don't think we'll be showing an awful lot of attacking intent, quite frankly. I think we will. It's going to be one of those mad games where I think both teams are going to be desperate for the other team to have the ball, so that they can try and win the ball back in a good area and be really efficient with how they use the ball on the counter attack. I mean, Forest obviously over the last year, 18 months or so, have shown themselves to be very good at doing that. We have been kind of somewhat less so, because basically over that time we've been used to dominating possession. So trying to get used to a different style and different way of winning Premier League points is understandably taking its time. But I think I think it's going to be much more like the Fulham game just before Christmas, where we frustrated the hell out of them. Didn't really create a huge amount, but had little minor openings and then got away with it a little bit with the 2 chances they created towards the end. But quite frankly, Forest are better than Fulham, so I would expect them to take at least one of those chances, and it will be Chris Wood because he always scores against us. So yeah, also going to go 1-0 to Forest.
Yeah, I think Forest will win it as well. Love to be positive, but it's hard to be. I think Forest are a really good side. Matt, from what I've seen, I'm going to go with a Forest victory. I'm going to go 2-0 Forest. I don't see us scoring. I think you'll be solid, and I wish you all the best for the rest of the season. Matt, thank you for coming on our podcast this evening. It's been brilliant to have you with us.
Yeah,
and
cheers, Matt.
we'll see you soon.
I'll see you on Friday, Martin. Yeah, thank you very much for doing our podcast. So yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, fellas.